Hello.
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 In our first video today, we're reviewing...
Some comic books.
Okay, we're reviewing BPRD Hell on Earth New World and BPRD Hell on Earth Gods and Monsters.
Scary stuff.
These are Dark Horse books. They're part of the new BPRD cycle. For anyone who isn't familiar, it's a secret government organisation. BPRD stands for Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defence. The title is kind of self-explanatory. They're a bureau. They research and defend against paranormal things. Before we go to the synopsis, Tommy, what did you think?
I thought some freaky stuff goes down, and some terrifying monsters are in there, which naturally just makes it brilliant. And I loved it.
I think the first one, which was New World, was okay, but it felt like it was building up to something more, which was then portrayed more so in Gods and Monsters, I thought. And
It's like it didn't really have its own...
yeah. But yeah, I thought I'd definitely say I prefer Gods and Monsters, but it was still pretty good.
When we do the synopsis, I'll explain more about the first cycle of BPRD. I liked New World because they fought a giant squid monster, and I just love giant squid monsters anytime, especially if it's being fought by a fish man, because a fish man versus a squid monster is just ironic at best. Yeah, I just loved it. I just thought Gods and Monsters breaks down into two smaller stories, Gods and Monsters. I liked Gods better. I won't tell you why, because that gives away a huge spoiler. Monsters, I don't know, it was alright, but again, for reasons of plot content, I didn't like it so much. Skip past the synopsis to the time posted in the description below during this picture. You're still here. That means you want to see the plot. Are you sure?
Are you really, really sure?
Are you really, really, really sure?
First cycle of BPRD was called Plague of Frogs. In Plague of Frogs, the BPRD are dealing with their first sort of big issue. Like they've been around dealing with, you know, witches who are attacking towns, or I don't know, monsters that are appearing out of nowhere. The paranormal, you know, you get the idea. But their big problem are these frog monsters. If you know the Hellboy series at all, then you know that at the start of the Hellboy series, the frog monsters kill Hellboy's father. But the frog monsters are only sort of the lesser minions. There are also these much bigger monsters, which you get a glimpse of at the end of New World, I think. That was the first cycle. Basically, they were just fighting those. A lot of stuff happens. So basically, the first cycle, they're fighting these frog monsters. It hasn't really ended in the second cycle, but rather than just fighting the frog monsters, there are lots more of the enormous, huge monsters. Oh yeah, also, Liz disappears at the end of the first one because of some stuff that goes on with her and a ghost. I don't want to give too much away. Benjamin Diamo, I call him Benny because I'm not sure I'm saying his last name quite right. He's a werepanther, because this being, this werepanther thing, killed him, and when it kills you, you become it, and it clawed off half of his face, and then once his secret got out to the BPRD, they just thought he was just a regular military leader guy, but when his secret got out to them, he disappeared, along with a creature called Daryl, who is a monster but also very lovely. And he reappears later in this. In New World, Abe goes looking for Benny because he's found newspaper clippings that report sightings of Bigfoot, and he figures if anyone he knows looks a lot like Bigfoot, it's definitely going to be the guy who's secretly a werepanther. So,
Whilst searching for Benny, Abe comes across two people who share their backstories, and they have rather a sordid past. And then they come across a quite terrifying tentacle monster in the woods. And whilst trying to attack it, they're having a bit of difficulty but they get some help from Daryl.
Told you he was lovely.
So he helps to try and defeat the monster, and
Eventually, I think it turns out that there's a woman whose baby died, and when her baby died, a squid monster replaced the baby. So there are two squid monsters. There's a little one and a big one. And the little one replaced the baby, and she's convinced it is a baby, a human baby. And the big one is going around killing people. Tom, if you could sum up in maybe a sentence or two.
All I can really remember was fighting this weird kind of white tentacle thing that absorbs people's souls. And it tried to absorb, I think, like Abe's associate's soul, but then gets shot and killed. And I think the mum also gets shot and killed. And it's all very sad. And the big one that's kind of the real problem. After the kind of woman whose baby died is killed, it also dies.
Yeah.
But
In all honesty, it's not a very clear story. But if I try my best, I'd say giant squid monster replaces woman's dead baby. That was a dick move. Abe finds Benny and they kill it.
Gods and Monsters is kind of split into two parts. The first part, which is gods.
Because of all the frog monsters attacking major cities in America, most people think it isn't safe to live in their own homes anymore. And so instead, they all travel around as a huge group, moving from huge city to huge city, just sort of sleeping rough. Because then they think, they can move out the way if there's another big disaster.
And their leader, who is a 16-year-old girl, is kind of like this foresight ability, kind of. So she can kind of pick up when something bad is going to happen to their whereabouts. So they can move when she kind of senses that shit's going to go down. And one thing leads to another, and Abe gets shot by her.
Yeah, they're trying to track her down because if they get her and she can see the future, that could be some use to them. So they try and track her down, but when they do find her, she isn't best
Very
pleased.
Cooperative.
No.
It's a lot less gory than Monsters. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, in Monsters, Monsters is kind of an ironic title because there aren't that many actual monsters in the story, whereas there are in sort of every other BPRD book. So, basically Liz, after she disappeared, went and lived with some hillbillies in a trailer park. And because she's a BPRD agent, she's trained in sort of every martial art, so they all fear and respect her, kind of in a prison kind of way. Yeah, and then basically some murders take place, and then some really, really nasty murders take place.
But what I kind of gathered is I think that there's like some kind of cult, and they're pretty sick people.
Yes.
If they have anything to do with what happens to the slightly large bald gentleman.
Towards the end of Monsters, it sort of showed that it was hinting towards something larger, because I think there was a panel where this guy kicks a frog, and then later on there's a whole horde of frogs outside the fence. So you get a hint of something bigger is about to happen, but it doesn't quite come in the end of Monsters.
Basically, we know that Liz will come back to BPRD, because she always does. It's unsure how, so, yeah, basically, she might uncover a cult of very disturbed people who do that to people. Or it could be a large group of frog monsters. It could be anything. Last comments?
They're both very good reads.
They are both good reads, but I would say that... But the New World story sort of slipped by us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit... When I read it, it didn't seem to relate very well.
Yeah.
I got the impression that the squid monster was meant to be part of the bigger movement of frog monsters and big monsters, but I didn't entirely get.
No.
Yeah, I like Gods better out of all three. Well, for one thing, Gods has a load more action.
Yeah, it's just easy to follow. As a character, lots of action and lots of pretty pictures.
Anyway, New World.
I'm going to give it a Dakin.
That's a scale of Aquaman to Deadpool.
On a scale of Aquaman to Deadpool, I would give Yeah, I'd go for a Dakin. Maybe half Dakin, half Iron Man.
Somewhere between Dakin
Yeah.
and Iron Man. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'd say it didn't strike me very. I just thought it didn't really live up to BPRD's reputation for really good, like clever stories. So I'd say between Batman and Dakin. Batman and a half. Next we'll be reviewing the game Catherine, and it's terrifying. And we'll see you in the next video. Okay, see ya. See you soon.